Hey guys, it's Angelo, and since we reviewed a rough draft of the upcoming Shadow Priest changes for Battle for Azeroth last week, today we're having a look at the changes that are planned for the Discipline Priest in World of Warcraft's newest expansion, Battle for Azeroth. Changes to the Disc Priest are definitely not as game-changing as those for the Shadow Priest could perhaps be, but are very interesting and diverse nonetheless. Please keep in mind that all of these changes are far from final and will only serve as a framework for what we can expect to come for the next expansion. A lot of things will still change, so please consider that when we review these changes. Now, in this video, we'll be going over all upcoming talent changes, spell changes, and any other class changes that have been data mined, but keep in mind that just like with the Shadow Priest changes, I will not address direct spell damage changes in this video, as those are obviously far from final and shouldn't really be judged by us just about yet. I will go over spell dynamic changes, new talents and new abilities, or other similar changes to the spec itself. Again, there are quite a few interesting changes and there's definitely a lot for us to cover. As always, I'll go over all of it step by step so that we can be sure not to miss any important details. And now, of course, without any further ado, let's go right ahead and have a look. The first real change we'll see when looking at spell changes would be Leap of Faith. Now, this isn't really important directly for Discipline Priests, but Leap of Faith is now available for all Priest specs again, just like before Legion. Purify, our single targeted dispel, now requires level 20 and only costs 2.6% of the Priest's base mana from previously 3%. Its cooldown is currently completely removed, which also means the spell has no charges and can be spammed, the same way than before the big dispel changes that came with Warlords of Draenor, so definitely a couple of years ago. Whether or not this stays this way remains to be seen, but the idea to revert back to the old way of things when it comes to dispel is honestly a good idea. Shadow Word Pain has its uptime reduced to 14 seconds, which was previously 18 seconds. This is the same change as is being made to the Shadow Priest, and honestly this is an interesting change in my opinion, even more so for the Discipline Priest now. This will make it harder to keep Shadow Word Pain, or Purge the Wicked even, on your targets, and will require you to shift more attention to your micromanagement, which in itself is not necessarily a bad thing, but we'll have to wait and see. Shadow Fiend has had its duration increased to 15 seconds from previously 12, which is definitely a nice quality of life change. All other spells in the Discipline Priest's current ability kit, so Flash Heal, Shadow Mend, Penance, Plea, Power Word Radiance, Power Word Shield, and all other spells have either remained unchanged, or have only received tuning changes in form of spell power nerfs or buffs. Overall, all spells look solid so far, and fortunately the Discipline Priest hasn't received any drastic changes which may affect gameplay, fun, or the engagement the player will invest into the class. When looking at all the Priest specs when it comes to Battle for Azeroth spell changes, I'd say that the Discipline Priest is currently in the most comfortable position. Now, jumping straight into the talents, we don't see as many changes as with the Shadow Priest, for example, so I'm going to simply talk about all the talents that have changed position or effect in their talent row, but I will of course display the complete new talent list on the top left. Right off the bat, we see that the Angelic Feathers have had their charges removed completely, which is actually a pretty neat change. The cooldown still stays, but the spell is not limited to 3 charges anymore, which always had this weird delayed time in between the 3rd and the 4th feather you'd place, so it's nice that this seems to get changed. Dominant Mind is now found in our level 60 talent row from previously level 45, and has been changed to a discipline-only talent. Masochism, similar to Dominant Mind, is now discipline-only as well, while Mindbender unlocks at level 45 now rather than level 60. Power Word Solace now takes the place of Shining Force in the level 45 talent row, and Psychic Voice therefore gets bumped up from level 45 to level 60. Shield Discipline in return gets brought to level 45 from previously level 60, and finally we have a slight nerf to Twist of Fate. The reason I bring this nerf up is because this can play out to be pretty important for Discipline Priests, as Twist of Fate is currently the go-to talent in its current row, so we'll have to wait and see if this stays the way it currently is planned or not. In general, many of these talent changes do make sense in my opinion, and most just serve as organizational purposes. In order to make strong talents a little weaker by aligning them with other talents in the same row, while all of our crowd control talents have simply been shifted up into the level 60 row, again to keep things organized. Personally, I'm pretty satisfied with the disc's talent set, and in my opinion, these talents are perfectly ready for some hands-on tests on the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. Now, what do I think of all the changes and the Discipline Priest in total currently? Honestly, there's nothing bad to say about the spec, but there's nothing excitingly new about it either, which is, in all honesty, a pretty good thing. The level 45 talents and level 60 talents swapping rows essentially is a quality of life change, but could simply be used for alpha testing purposes. Honestly, we don't really know yet. Just like with the Shadow Priest, I'm not overly excited about the Twist of Fate changes because I do like the talent a lot, but I do understand that it needs to be tuned in certain situations, as it is the superior talent in its row in most situations you could imagine it in. The changes to Shadow Word Pain are not too bad for the Disc Priest in my opinion, as the lower uptime, even though it makes things slightly harder to manage, can also make for more engaging gameplay in the long run. We'll have to wait and see. Honestly, it'd be exciting to know more. Now, what do you think? Do you think the Discipline Priest is fine, or do you enjoy these changes? Or rather, do you think that there are more to come, or that they are only a placeholder perhaps? Let me know in the comments. I'd be super excited to know, and I do have to say, my friends, I'm genuinely happy how many of you are commenting and discussing with one another about the Shadow Priest changes for Battle of Azeroth, and I'm definitely interested in reading on what you guys have to say about the Discipline Priest. A special thanks, as always, to my supporters over at Patreon. Your support is greatly appreciated, and a thank you, of course, to everyone else who's watching. Battle for Azeroth draws closer every day, and I'm excited to see what's to come in the upcoming weeks. Now, as always, have a good one, my friends, and I will see you all in the next one.